Hello. The IRS has been ramping up to push their enforcement efforts, but unfortunately for them, they had to stop because COVID happened. And then, as we've had more and more relief from the government via the Treasury Department, IRS, those enforcement efforts keep getting pushed back further and further and further. Well, guess what? Now, the IRS is about to come at us all gas and no brakes. And a lot of taxpayers are receiving different notices about tax debt that they completely forgot about. One of those notices is the CP 504. And in this video, I'm going to go over what the CP 504 is, what you need to do about it, and what you should do if you can't do what the IRS is requesting you to do. So, first things first, before I get too far, let me introduce myself. My name is Timolyn Bowens, and I am America's favorite EA. I'm also the owner of Bowens Tax and Bookkeeping Solutions. I'm sorry, it's no longer Bowens Tax and Bookkeeping Solutions, but now we are Bowens Tax Solutions. We are a virtual firm based in Louisville, Kentucky that specializes in resolving taxpayers' IRS issues. So you'll see here on the screen, I have a CP 504. So you'll know if your letter is a CP 504 because right here in the top right corner, it will say CP. And then whatever the letters are afterwards is the code, and it tells you what type of letter this is. So as I've mentioned, this is a CP 504. It's for the tax year 2005. Now, in this example, the notice date is March 2nd of 2009. You see here we have a fake social security number with the all nines, the phone number with how you can contact the IRS, and the call center number. Also, in this top right corner, it will tell you which page it is and how many others there are. Now, this information here has been redacted, so this is where your information would be. So, your name and address. You received this notice because the IRS hasn't received payment of your unpaid balance. This notice is your notice of intent to levy, which is the IRS or Internal Revenue Code section 6331D. What a levy does is allows the IRS to garnish either your bank account or your wages. If you don't pay the amount due immediately, the IRS can levy your income and bank accounts as well as seize your property or your right to property, including your state income tax refund to pay the amount that you owe. So here you see in this example, the notice of intent to levy, and this is the amount, $3,999.86. Whenever you receive correspondence from the IRS, it will also give you a breakdown of the total amount that they say that you owe. So we can see here the actual tax owed was $2,902.68. The failure to pay penalty is $284.26. And then we have interest charges of $812.92. I want to give you this tip here. If you can't pay in full, you want to make sure that you always set up a payment arrangement with the IRS because if you know the code well enough and have it set up properly, you can cut your interest rate going forward in half, but it does have to be set up properly. So, with this notice of intent to levy, you can see here on the notice, they let you know you've already been notified that you have a tax debt. But if you're like most taxpayers, getting a letter from the IRS probably makes you a bit nervous. Take a deep breath, let it out, You have to open the notice because you have to respond. Remember, when dealing with the IRS, they are the most aggressive collection agency in the country. If you just keep ignoring them, they will make sure that they get their money by taking your bank accounts, contacting your employer. They will do whatever they deem necessary to make sure that they get their money. So again, it says here, as we've notified you before, our records show you have unpaid taxes for the tax year ending December 31st, 2005, Form 1040. If you don't call us immediately or pay the amount due by March 12th, 2009, we may seize, which is levy, any state tax refund to which you're entitled to and apply it to the balance that you owe. If you still have an outstanding balance after we seize any state tax refund, we may take possession of your other property or your rights to property. So when we go down, they provide you with a payment voucher and where you need to mail that payment to. Now, right now, it's presently June 28th, 2021. Your notice may give you 30 days. If you have the 30 days, you want to make sure that you come up with some type of action plan. If you can pay the amount that you owe in full, go ahead and pay that immediately. You can pay that online, or you can go ahead and use the payment voucher and send a check or money order in, or you can pay it by phone, calling the number that's listed at the top of the notice. But if you can't pay it in full, then you'll want to make a payment plan. Now, as I mentioned before, when a payment plan is set up properly, it can cut your interest rate in half. Also, when you know the tax law, depending on why you didn't pay your taxes, if there was a reasonable cause, so let's say there was a major life event, natural disaster, and you've pretty much been in compliance up until this point, you may be eligible for some reasonable cause penalty relief. So, again, we cannot ignore any notices from the IRS because they remind you again, if you don't pay the amount due, we may seize any state tax refunds which you're entitled on or after March 12th, 2009. And as I mentioned before, this is from the Internal Revenue Code section 6331D. So let's look at this. What if you don't believe that you actually owe the amount that's in question? One of your rights as a taxpayer is to appeal this decision. So, going further down in here, you would request an appeal under the Collection Appeals Program, but you need to make sure that you have all of your I's dotted and T's crossed if you're going to go up against the IRS to say, hey, I don't really owe this, or hey, I've already paid this. So you want to make sure that you have some type of action plan before going up against them. If the IRS does not issue a levy, I mentioned they can take possession of your property or your right to property. They may file a notice of federal tax lien if they haven't already done so. A lien is a public notice to your creditors that the IRS has a right to your interest in current assets and any assets you acquire after the lien is filed. It can not only affect your credit, but with that, it makes it difficult if you have a home to be able to sell that home and also to buy a home. This notice, the federal tax lien notice, also explains the denial or revocation of a United States passport, the Fixing America's Surface Transportation, also known as the FAST Act legislation, generally prohibits the State Department from issuing or renewing a passport to a taxpayer with seriously delinquent tax debt. So, if you're at the point where you're getting that CP 504 notice, Now, not only are your wages in jeopardy, they can possibly come and take the money out of your bank account, but they can also keep you from traveling outside of the country if your taxes are that delinquent. So, what happens if you don't pay or contact the IRS? The things that I just mentioned. The real property includes wages, real estate commissions, and other income, bank accounts, business assets, personal assets, including your car and home. They will even take your Social Security benefits to make sure that this tax debt is paid in full. So, what you want to do, again, course of action, we want to come up with a plan that if you can't pay this in full, you need to figure out how much you actually can pay and set up a properly set up, excuse me, a payment plan with the IRS so that you can see the light at the end of the tunnel to know that you're going to have this debt settled. And you also want to be able to cut that interest rate in half so you're not paying a ridiculous amount of interest. Because as you can see here, the failure to pay penalty is much less than the interest. At the end of your notice, you'll see different removal of penalties due to an error from written advice from the IRS. They also tell you about a few other ways that you may be able to reduce the penalties. But I just want you to know that you can't not respond to this. If you don't agree, you have the option to appeal. If you do know that you owe it and you can't pay in full, get a payment plan set up immediately. So if you received this notice, a CP 504, go ahead and get that payment plan set up. Now, if looking at this and listening to me is kind of making your stomach hurt, you're like, oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start. I would be happy to set up a phone call with you to see if you're a good fit to work with me. One of the things that I do as America's favorite EA is I represent taxpayers before the IRS, especially taxpayers that can't pay in full due to their financial situation. There is tax law out there that could work on your behalf where we could reduce this debt. It may not be where you pay pennies on the dollar, but we can get those penalties and interest knocked down and get something that is in your best interest that will also satisfy the IRS. Like I said, I'd love to book that call with you. You can book it by going to www.bowenstaxsolutions.com and then going to book now for the tax relief evaluation. I hope to talk with you soon, but you have to take the first step and book the call.